So I guess we can go through these first few that are in the other pad sort of quickly. So this is disk rescan PR. This is something Paul wrote. Essentially, originally we're working on this disk stuff. I think is as part of the external enclosures. And he's trying to improve the gather fact stuff. Um, as he was working on some weird cluster with multi-path devices and everything. He was trying to get that working. So he started on some extra work. And then I think this is a continuation of that. I'm not really sure. I don't sure why he put it in here. I don't. Um, like I'll need to review it. I don't know what we were supposed to discuss about it. I'll have to ask him like later. Yes, but that is there if anyone's interested in what we're doing to our disk rescanning stuff. And I'm going to skip to the third topic on here. We'll come back to the second one because it's related. To bring up again, we have this disk inventory thing. There wasn't much reaction to it last week, so I left it sort of there. I thought these people wanted to read this over. Basically, at this point, we sort of decided was if people don't have a strong opinion on it, we'd probably start looking towards like a proof of concept about getting this working. To remind people, it's basically just we want to have an alternative way of figuring out the disks on the host, the Ceph volume inventory, because it just runs sort of slow. And so Paul wants to work on doing this through the gather fact stuff in the Ceph EDM binary. And he has that whole other pad there explaining it and how it's faster and everything. Yeah, we're just trying to feel out if people had any strong opinions against it or anything. Otherwise, we're going to sort of move forward on that. We're trying it out. Does like anyone has anything to say about it?
If I understand this correctly, we want to use different codes to gather the information of disks from the hosts.
Yeah.
So how are we going to keep the synchronization between the information we get from the hosts and the arguments we use for Ceph volume?
Well, we'd hope that it would gather the same information as what Ceph volume inventory gathers, it's just in a faster way. Because what ends up happening is as we have in the actual manager, we take the Ceph volume inventory data and then we pick out a certain set of fields and we sort of track them. So we end up with the same information tracked in the manager, and then it doesn't end up mattering where we got it from. So as long as we can get enough stuff from gather facts that it gets the same info as we would have gotten from the inventory, then after that everything should sort of just work. It would only be that sort of front part that needs to change. And I know Paul is really aware of what the volume inventory gathers. He was looking at it pretty closely, so I think he would know what has to happen there, what we need to gather in order to get all the information.
Okay. So it was just for like, how are we going to keep this information synchronized? And if this code will be also part of Ceph volume, or it will be on different components?
Well, we shouldn't have to try to synchronize it because it should just be the same information. Like if they say if the information you're talking about is like say like the devices, what paths they're using, like their like what brand the device is and things like that. If it's rotational or not, things of that nature. Which it should just be the same. If it is done properly, then it shouldn't matter which one we're using. We shouldn't have to try to synchronize it. It should like find this device and say like, oh, this one is this model. It's a rotational drive. It's whatever.
I don't want to put words in Redo's mouth, but I think maybe and this is what I'm thinking as well, keeping the code in sync. If Ceph volume expects X, and all of a sudden we now have a duplicate code base. I'm doing air quotes. You can't see me. Duplicate in kind of quotes. So I think I mentioned this last time. It sounds really good to speed things up, but it feels a little strange to have another implementation inside of Ceph ADM that can, in theory, go out of sync with each other with Ceph volume.
Yeah.
I would much prefer if it was like a, say, dash dash flat fast flag on Ceph volume or something that says you don't need to check all the things and speed things up, and at least then you're kind of keeping things together in the same code base. That's
Yeah.
my gut feeling. I think I said that last time this came up. So
Yeah, I remember
whatever.
discussing this implementation of Ceph volume and why they wanted to do it this way, or why Paul wanted to do it this way. Sort of the difficulties he's had in trying to refactor that. I tried talking with him again, but he's not here, so I can't get the full details. But like I said, I think it was something about the fact, like the way it's currently set up and all the things built in the Ceph volume, and the fact that it has all these, the code base isn't set up just for the inventory, but also for everything else that it's doing and stuff. That it was just really difficult to have it done properly. But I can try asking him again if he thinks the code could just live in Ceph volume, and maybe that would be possible.
Yeah, and the other thing is if we want, I know the time zone with him is difficult. I don't know, maybe making a mailing list thread out of it.
Yeah, I could set up an email between people who are interested in the topic. I know I can be with him sort of late in the day. Sometimes he'll come online around 4 or 5 p.m. my time, but for Europe, it's almost impossible to talk with him.
Because if we create like separate components for code, I see big chances to have things going out of sync, and it will be difficult to maintain both components in the long run. So if we introduce something new, I think it will be good from the long run to keep it in sync or are part of seed volume, as John pointed out.
I'd love to see if maybe the same Python code can exist in the Ceph volume sort of area, and it can just not use maybe the other stuff that's in there currently.
And of course, this gets me thinking of things like, if we had already had library support in Ceph ADM, well, you could now call the same function, but that's another one of the downsides of Ceph ADM being this one big binary. If he adds this implementation, it's got to be the whole shebang. It can't just be, a function call into a library, which is, again, if it's like, I'm not like hardcore, like, no. It's just one of these, it sounds like we're getting into the classic man with two watches problem. So, like, if there is a discrepancy, which one is right? We don't know.
Yeah, I get where you guys are coming from. I can try to bring it up with them because it's a bit easier for me to. Well, I guess you're in the same time as I am, but at least for grids like Riddle, it's easier for me to talk to him. I can try messaging him about that sort of idea and see if possible. I might need more, maybe I need more details from him on why he didn't want it in Ceph volume. See if it's justified in some way to not put it there. I can understand why it would be nicer to have it in one spot and not have to risk there being a difference there.
Yeah, I remember reading from the document I think there was one technical thing called out, which was when Ceph volume runs, it runs within the container, but it wants to run certain command lines on the host, so there's some overhead of doing that. But there may be ways around that overhead that we could consider that maybe he hasn't thought of yet. So it's worth having a conversation about the technical aspect.
All right. Yeah, we can probably just continue the conversation then. I'll try to get some more information from him. Maybe we can just have this sort of be recurring until we have a thing, or I'll set up in the actual email thread or something. Something like that.
Yeah, or maybe you can have separate meeting to discuss it.
Yeah, it's just hard to get everyone who would be wanted to be there and involved in that meeting because there's no good time doing that. I think New Zealand compared to like Western Europe is something like 12 hours.
The problem is, it's getting people from New Zealand. It's hard.
I can I'll try to start an email thread, or I'll message him today, and then if we get more information, maybe we'll start an email thread, talk about it. Get you two, and then maybe even Guillaume involved because he's one who maintains Ceph volume. Maybe he'd have some information as well.
Yeah.
All right. So those were the first and third topic on there. And I see we have a Prometheus service discovery. I think this is your thing, Redo.
Yeah, just put it there basically to make sure that everybody's aware about what are we introducing as part of the Prometheus service stuff. So this PR is, I think, now is ready for review. So if you can go and have a look. It sounds like very big changes, but most of them are moving code and some refactoring, removing code into separate files. So the changes aren't that big.
Yeah. Did you have it separated? I haven't looked at the commits. Is it separated out so you can see which ones are refactoring and what's the new stuff?
I can put some notes if you'd like to in the PR to indicate what are the refactoring that I did to be more easier for you to track the changes.
All right, I'm just saying for review purposes, it
Yeah,
does look like it's a lot of lines.
yeah,
If it was split up, it would be easier to tell. Because I want to obviously the new thing is the main thing I want to look at closely, and then the refactoring stuff just to make sure things are moved around properly. So
yeah.
if there is a way to
I,
tell it, it'd be useful.
I will try to put some notes to describe what are the changes, especially what are the refactoring ones to make it easier for you.
Right.
But
And
yeah, it seems
just for
like
my
very big.
clarity, is the point here just that we have this service discovery endpoint now, and we just want to have our Prometheus instance use it the way like an external one would? Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah, it
So
seems like
that would,
something we could do. And it would
yeah,
also be a nice test that the external one would actually maybe work and get ours to work as well.
yeah.
I don't know, to figure out something with the certificates, because I'm guessing that we're going to need the certificates for the external ones if you need it for the internal one.
Uh, yeah.
So let's
So right
figure out something
now,
there.
I in the changes I separated between the agent and the new HTTP server that is used for the endpoints, and it has its own certificate. So this is something that we have to discuss on if some external monitoring tool is deployed. How are we going to provide this certificate?
Yeah, I feel like we need to have some sort of command that can sort of spit out a certificate that you can use for this,
Mhm.
and have the person like manually have to like set it up on their Prometheus instance. Um, I'm not sure how else we would really get around it unless we wanted to make it insecure connection.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
from point of view of security, I'm not sure if there are deployments where they may have issues with their signed certificates. Mm,
yeah. Um, yeah, they have like a strict checking on it. I guess they would have a problem. So I'm wondering if we want to have an option to make it be insecure as well, like a way to set it up in case people don't want to worry about the certificates and everything. Or maybe even some way to set up a Cherry Pie server in CephEDM that uses a secure certificate. Like you could like tell it to use this certificate as the server one.
Oh yeah,
If we had some ways to customize that, that's something I think you'd consider doing anyway for the agent at one point, in case some people wanted to use their own certificates for it.
their own certificates. Yeah,
Yeah, so if we had a way to have custom certificates in the Cherry Pie stuff, that would probably be a good thing anyway. Um, Maybe something we can look at
yeah,
after this stuff is done, because we're going to want to do this refactoring anyway and all that, and then after that, maybe we can add some features to our Cherry Pie servers that'll allow these other scenarios to go through.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Just good.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about Prometheus service discovery? No. In that case, do you want to talk about the HANFS stuff a little bit? So I know, Romana, you weren't here last week. So you and basically somebody came in here and sort of brought up and asked what the status was, and they mentioned something about a proof of concept that you were working on. Um, but I didn't really know what was going on with it, so we sort of pushed the topic back this week. Do you have any sort of updates or anything? What's been going on there?
Yeah, I was in PTO last week, Adam, and I haven't worked on the proof of concept yet. I think the idea was to work with Francisco and set up a OpenStack environment with Cephadium deployed NFS service and Ganesha, NFS service and CephFS, and figure out if we can, you know, tweak the keep alive D config and see if we can just have one floating IP work for one Ganesha server, one active Ganesha server, see if that works, and not worry about HA proxy, not introduce HA proxy. I think that was the idea Francisco had in mind. Francisco, do you like to talk more about that?
Yeah. So my idea was to keep alive D, managing the keys, and remove the HA proxy layer. This will allow us to have one stable virtual IP per Ganesha service, and this should be aligned with the conversation that we had also in the mailing list regarding the option and the strategy. Deploy Ganesha with multiple Ganesha with multiple virtual IP. So the idea of the POC could be trying to change the FADM to deploy keep alive D but not HA proxy when it's NFS, and provide a virtual IP which is similar to what we are doing in OpenStack with Peacemaker. Because at the moment in OSP, Peacemaker is the service that owns the virtual IP, and there is a constraint that make us having the Ceph NFS systemd unit tied to this virtual IP. Now, KPLFD is just can act basically as PCS does for OSP. So we can provide the IP basically can move if there is a failover, but it has no clues about the underlying software using it. And that's where FADM should help, because we need to make sure that the Ganesha instance is always tied to that virtual IP. That should be the proof of concept, let's say. We can set up an OSP environment to work on this. I guess it's the same for standalone Ceph deployment. Mostly Ceph ADM work that we need to do to make sure that first we are able to apply a spec or create the NFS cluster, providing virtual IPs, but just deploying keep alive D and not HA proxy. So this should be the first step. My question is, are we working on this POC, this solution, only for OSP?
Currently we are. I don't know who else was using the other HNFS deployments. The one with the HA proxy in front of it, but like at least I think it was Dragon's Mother meeting, like I sort of okayed it as what we were going to do moving forward. And the only other reason we sort of wanted to do this other one was because we knew that HA proxy didn't work for you. If it turned out somebody else could make use of it, that would be great, but there's nobody else asking for this other than OpenStack as far as I know.
Okay. Ramana, do you have additional things you want to cover?
Yeah, Adam, I just want to make sure, like, what else we want. I mean, we created a feature tracker ticket. We can figure out, maybe add details about Francisco's ideas and making it work, at least for one Ganesha active server with one floating IP using keep alive D. We can provide those details in the tracker ticket. And is that good enough for Cephadium core team to start working on it? Is that what you're looking for from us?
Yeah, I mean the main things are just one, that make sure that the proof of concept actually works, and then basically to specify exactly what Cephadium's actions need to be. So it sounds like we need to be able to deploy keep alive D without HA proxy. That seems to be one requirement. and then this managing the virtual IP and making sure it tracks if the NFS moves around. That seems to be the other one. So if the proof of concept sort of works and you guys put some details in there about what you're doing in your proof of concept to set up the virtual IP and stuff, I think that should be, I think, enough to for us to get started on it. Is that what you were asking
Sounds
about?
good. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. So we just wanted to make sure that that you don't wait on us to implement the feature. If you're waiting
Yeah,
on
as far as
something
I know,
from
you
us.
guys aren't planning to make any CephVDM changes yourselves. You just want to provide the external stuff like what CephVDM is supposed to be doing, and then we're supposed to be making CephVDM do that.
Yeah, just wanted to clear that up in case there was some confusion around that. So yeah, we'll try to provide more details on if once we get this proof of concept working. And I know you wanted more clarity around how we want to design the API so that it's less confusing for the users when they want to deploy with HA proxy and without HA proxy. So the interface the service spec might have more config options, which might be complicated, but that's, I guess, at a later stage where we design those interfaces. But for now, if we get this HA proxy, the keeper ID config, if we can share that and check if that works, that should be good enough, right?
Yeah, because right now we just have like when you do that like Ceph or I guess yeah Ceph the Ceph NFS one, this manage your NFS module to do it. You've had the Ingress flag. We have like our two different service specs that get made. There's like the NFS one and there's the full Ingress one. I think we're gonna need to have like an equivalent one, just like a keep alive D only service that you can apply, and we're gonna have to change the normal command. Like, I think if you just provide the virtual IP but not the Ingress flag to just do the keep alive D only setup. I think this is what we were thinking before. So we'd have to, I guess, make that keep alive D only service available, and then have it use that IP. I don't think it would take a ton of changes to the NFS service spec or anything. I think it would just have to be, we have to make a new service for just keep alive D. I think that would be the major thing there. And other than that, it would just be managing the virtual IP, something attached to the NFS service where we know like, oh, it has this IP that's supposed to be maintained, and we make sure things get moved around properly.
Yeah, because in theory, the change can be having keep alive D managing multiple virtual IPs. Then all the Ganesha instances, their config, they should be bound to one of these virtual IPs. Which is pretty different from what we're doing today in CephVDM because we just generate the config file and apply it, but it's a template. We use the network parameter in the spec, so this should be turned into a virtual IP associated with a specific Ganesha instance config. It's kind of what we're doing for RGW, as far as I know. I'm not sure, but that should be the way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think what we just need to do is get all this stuff sort of in writing somewhere, and then like if you combine that with the proof of concept stuff and what ends up working there, and then we'll just clarify what we need to be doing, and we should be able to start working on it.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we can use the feature tracker ticket that we already created and just add more details in that.
Yeah, I think let's
Right.
just keep expanding it.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Like, keep me up to date on if you guys have any updates on the POC stuff. You figure anything out there or get anything working. And I'll try to check that tracker issue sort of often, but honestly, it might be easier if you just message me when you update it. I know I like Redmine spam as my email all the time, so it's hard to see things.
Yeah,
I'll try to look at it sometime.
Yeah, we'll update you in this meeting weekly if we have made any progress.
Yeah,
Right.
let's keep track of the progress here. Thanks.
Yeah. That sounds good to me. Let's put some stuff in the other charts. Is there anything else anyone wanted to say about the HNFS discussion, or are we sort of good for this week? We'll just have the proof of concept work keep going forward, and then come back to it next week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's clear to me. Thanks, Adam.
Okay. Good. I think that was all the topics we had, as far as I know. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to talk about in here? Like it. In that case, we can end here and see you all next week. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.